the Solo Coach Podcast.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Solo Coach Podcast. So today I'm joined by Scott Kirk, my friend who's a copywriter and bookmaker.
Yeah.
We
Hi
met.
guys, all right?
Hi, Scott. Welcome to the channel.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no, great stuff. Really happy to be here.
So I met Scott at a business networking event recently, and we hit it off, and then went for a coffee together, and have since met several times. Talk about copywriting and coaching, all manner of topics. And every time we get together, the time seems to fly by, and we have some fantastic conversations. And today, we're finally recording one of those conversations so that you can benefit from it as well. So Scott, like I say, was a freelance copywriter and bookmaker with a background in journalism. And we've had many really good conversations about the highs and lows of being self-employed. So I'm really looking forward to sharing some of those nuggets of wisdom with everyone listening. And with no further ado, let's get into it. So Scott, can you tell us a little bit about what you do as a copywriter specializing in SEO and a bookmaker?
Yeah, sure. So it's there's not many bookmakers and copywriters out there, so they're very different things. So I'll try and brand them differently. So bookmakers a family business. We go horse race and take bets from people at the horses. So we go to the grand. We've gone to the Grand National in a few in April, and then we go to places like Pontefract, Hexham, Wetherby. We're all over the north of England, and we're basically for those who like a tipple on a few quid on the horses, we take the bets there. So that's one part of what I do. And that's very much a summer sort of focused thing. Less work in the winter, very busy in the summer, very fairly seasonal. There's racing all year round, but obviously busier in the when the weather's nicer, effectively. So I'm also a copywriter as well. So as you mentioned before, I got a background in journalism. So I used to be a newspaper journalist for about 6.5 years, working for a couple of newspapers, one in the Lake District and one in Milton Keynes, and then left that and became a copywriter. So did that full time for about 5 or 6 years, something like that, and then decided to go freelance. So copywriting and SEO, sort of copywriting. Basically, what I do is I write content for websites. I write blogs, newsletters. So mainly for companies that may not have the time to do it, or for companies who go, I really know what I do and I really like what I do, but I don't really know how to vocalize it or how to write about it in a way that I've got time to do it properly. So I sort of write all that stuff, and then with the focus on SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. So basically what that means is we look at the keywords that people are searching for. So for instance, if you're looking for like a plumber in Leeds, what are the keywords surrounding that type of query that a person, potential customer, person on the internet would look for in Google. So I will write using keywords in mind and try and get people found on search engines through the content on the blog, through the content on website pages, through newsletters, through various different means like that. And it's really interesting. So there's lots of different ways to, SEO can be, it should be a part of every business's and everything they do when it comes to putting any information out there, whether it be social media, whether it be the product descriptions, how you describe a product. There's lots of different sort of ways that you can write about that, and it's SEO should be tailored into everything that you try and do. You got to be careful you don't sound like a robot and you're just trying to search for algorithms, because as we all know, we're not robots, and when you see that sort of language, it's really boring and dull, and you go, oh, this is just a computer writing that, or AI, which is a big topic in copywriting circles at the minute, obviously. But yeah, so very very briefly, as a copywriter, it's writing website pages, writing product descriptions, blogs, newsletters, etc.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you for that whistle stop tour really quickly of who you are, what you do, and how you do it. So the question that's on top of my head is, with SEO, like you touched on it there, we've got this beast, this mammoth beast called ChatGPT AI that can do a lot of the writing for us, and arguably we can get it to act as an SEO consultant. But what are some of the pitfalls and risks of relying on AI compared to working with someone like yourself? What's the benefits or the difference?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to me, like I think it can be. I think there's clearly a use for it, and I think it's I think it's obviously time is and cost. It's I can understand why people use it. It makes sense that people use it. I think it's a great tool for checking. Making sure that you're not making silly errors. I think the downfalls are that it does sound there's and it's hard to quantify, I think, like this, but I think it just doesn't sound very personal. And I think I tend to work with smaller businesses, so I think you want that personal touch, and I think you don't want to for me, I want to know that I'm dealing with a person. It's like if you call, if you just call a sort of a big company. I mean, most of them don't even have phone numbers now. They don't even want you to ring, but when you do, it's call centers, and it's very, like they just don't care about me, these people. So I think from a customer service perspective, getting a copywriter, and I don't sound too advertising here, but getting a copywriter, and like I think it's more of a personal touch, which I think can be really important to get through to your audience a lot better. If you know, there's a person on the other end of the phone or a person on the other end of what you're reading. I think it comes across as more authentic and truthful in a world which is becoming a lot of fake news and what's bots and can I trust what I'm reading here? I think with a copywriter, I think trust and authenticity are the ways that copywriters can move forward to sort of to bring people in who want something really valuable that people will read and people care about.
Thanks, Scott. And I know you've been, so for anyone listening, Scott's been really, really helpful for me in my business with helping me understand what SEO is and how it works. And we had a great discussion about content and, good ideas for blog articles and what I could do with my website to ensure that I'm reaching the right audience, sort of keyword research. And one of those points that you discussed with me, I was absolutely not aware of, was just how writing content purely using AI, Google's very clever, as you were telling me, and can quite easily recognize what's purely AI generated content. And you can end up, what's the word, sort of jeopardizing yourself, but your content gets actively ranked lower in SEO by overly relying on AI versus writing stuff yourself.
I think one thing that Google factors in with SEO, there's lots and lots of different things. You could do a course on it. Like there's so much to learn about SEO. But so one thing that Google does is it looks at a search query that you're putting in and goes, what is the best result that I can put forward here for this? So if you've got AI copy that does the job, but it's not interesting, then people will just the bounce rate, what's known as the bounce rate, is people will switch off from your page and just go elsewhere and go, this is a robot writing this. If you've got some interesting content that's laid out nicely with videos, the dwell time of how long someone is staying on your page is a factor for SEO. So that means that it can see the dwell time of certain different websites. And if people are spending more time on your website, if you've got really great links to other authoritative and factual and really good websites that you're not paying for, that's just taking you off, down a course that's so obviously looking for links and stuff like that, then yeah, it can tell that, which is why it's to get that authentic and truthful and relevant answer with your copy is really important. That's why you want to base your website copy around what you think people will search for. This is why keyword research is so important to try and do, because what you think may be really relevant to someone and you really care about, when you actually look at it, nobody's searching for it. So you can do content based on that till the cows come home. But if nobody's searching for it, then nobody's ever going to find you. And likewise, if you're searching for too big an audience, like if you were to just have the example before about being a plumber, there's hundreds of thousands of people searching for that every day. So you're never going to sort of, you're going to be competing with the real big hitters who spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on the websites. So it's about finding obviously the balance with that. And that's why, the keyword research is important. And that's why, if you've got a website with interesting content that people will actually enjoy reading, and it's not just boring and written by a robot, then that I think that comes across, and that's why it's why it's worthwhile investing in that. And you don't just want to. I think people just go, I've got to get my website sorted, and we'll do it very quickly just to get it done. And I've been guilty of that myself. I must admit, with what I do myself, which I shouldn't do at all. But it's like you're running a business. You've got time. You've got people that you're managing. It's difficult, but really spending that time on your website can really help you, not just from a pure revenue and bringing customers into your business, but as a tool to direct people towards. And saying, look, we've got a really interesting blog on this topic. I can direct you to that, and your website. Look, it's your shop window, and you want it looking as professional as possible. So aside from the SEO as well, it's just a good tool to make you look professional, make you look like you know what you're doing and what you're talking about effectively.
Thanks, Scott. I know when we had a consultation and discussion about SEO for my business, what was interesting was that the statistics that you brought showing the keywords that were the most searched that were relevant to a life coach working in the area that I work in. But what was super interesting and valuable to me was the way you interpreted those statistics and said, well, actually the highest hitting keywords, the highest hitters, the top ones aren't necessarily the ones to optimize your content for, because you could end up kind of, trying to make yourself seen, but in a very saturated space.
Correct. Yeah. Well,
yeah, the example was trying to create content for backpacking, I think it was.
Yes.
And in reality, most people searching that particular term were looking for a backpack to buy a backpack rather than a coach for someone who's going backpacking. So it was really valuable for me to have your interpretation and your insights of what just because they're the highest hitting search terms, they're not necessarily the right ones to go for your business. It's the low hanging fruit, but it's a kind of a watch out there.
Yeah, that's it. Ultimately, it's about the sort of queries and inquiries that ultimately it drags in. So you could look for a keyword that's 30 people a month are searching for, but if a third of those are giving you phone calls, then it's going to be a lot more valuable than trying to sort of search and compete with people like John Lewis. If you're a major company in that field, you're never going to compete with them, spend loads of money on doing their SEO and PPC. You're not going to be able to compete in that market. So trying to find your niche and trying to find that sweet spot is really good. And just mentioned there, it's so easy to get a keyword misinterpreted. Backpacking, as we mentioned before. People searching to buy a backpack. Now with what you do with your the traveling aspect of your coaching, that's not what you want at all. So it's so it's really, and one of the best exercises anybody can do for their own business is just Google them, like a keyword they think's relevant to themselves, and see what comes up. And then you can look at the top results and go, well, why are they there? Like, right, they must be doing something quite good here. To be, I mean, it might just be they're spending a lot of money on it, but also there'll be some organic results that come up. They've probably got a really good blog. They've probably got nice videos. There's just a couple of examples. So it's a worthwhile exercise just to do that as well. There's no right answer with SEO, unfortunately. Everyone thinks differently. Everyone interprets stats differently. Everybody, it's trying to. It's like with anything with statistics, isn't it? You've got to interpret them to try and get the results you want. But it can certainly inform how you go down a path, and you can take it from there. So it's quite interesting. And some of the keyword research is really interesting. It can take you down paths that you never thought you'd go down, and it gives you ideas for content as well. Like, what is a life coach was one example that we were doing. There's some people that don't know what that is. People search for life coach versus therapist, and you can do content based on things like that. There's loads of different ways. What is a copywriter is something I could probably do a blog on. There's loads. It can really take you down a good path for content ideas as well.
Thanks, Scott. I will say, even just having one session with you discussing this stuff has been very helpful for me to eliminate blank page syndrome. I don't know, I'm sure a lot of other creators can relate to it. Having lots of ideas, but suddenly when you get that piece of paper in front of you, deciding what you're going to start with, what you're going to do first, what you're going to write about or talk about first,
you
can end up feeling completely stuck and like analysis paralysis, and
Yeah.
having that conversation with you helped me get unstuck. And straight away, since we spoke, I've created and I've got some podcast episodes in the pipeline that are relevant, I feel, to my audience. And they're the sort of podcast episodes that I would have listened to a few years ago when I didn't know what a coach was or how they would be able to support me in doing what I want to do. So it's felt really relevant, and it's definitely helped me to get unstuck in that way. And what you were saying earlier about backpacking, it feels like if I was to partner with you for the long term, if and when I start releasing solo coach branded backpacks, then we can reevaluate what relevant search terms are relevant.
Yeah.
In which case, as my business demands and my offering changes, SEO kind of approach changes as well, grows and evolves with us.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to sell backpacks, then yeah, that's a sort of different channel. You might want to, you might want to, yeah, you might want to go down. That's very different to to like, but yeah, but it's
Never
yeah,
say never.
yeah, that's right. But I think what's really hard when you're running your own business or your own company or you're self-employed, whatever it might be, you get I don't want to say bogged down, but you're so involved in your own work that sometimes you've really got to strip it back and go back to basics about like what do I want to offer to people? What challenges are people going to face when they approach me? Like, is it obvious what I do? Is it obvious who I'm targeted towards? And that's why it might sound really basic to say what is a copywriter, what is a life coach, but just by having content that's evergreen content, it'll never go out of date on your website as well. So that's why it's a good and another from just to go back to SEO, content is still king with SEO. So if you've got a good bank of blogs that you're regularly updating, it's showing to the search engines that you're not just a static website with something that's that's just got no presence and isn't bothered. Like it's really good for SEO to continually update it. It's showing that there's a person on the end there that's actually doing some writing for it, and it's not just not just a static thing. I'm saying this. I've not done a blog on my own website yet, so I definitely need to start sort of do practice what I preach a little bit. But yeah, I think getting back to basics can be a really useful exercise for yourself as well. And go, well, what is it? Who do I want to appeal to? What is it that who's my target market? So content can help you on a wider sort of level like that, I think, as well.
Thanks, Scott. That's a great segue into sort of the next area of discussion I wanted to ask you about was about your decision to go freelance, some of the challenges and obstacles you faced or are indeed facing at the moment.
Yeah.
And I suppose there's definitely one question before we do that would be if someone is listening and they're thinking, okay, I've heard about this thing called SEO. Now I'm listening to a podcast about it. I really should do something about it. How would you work with a new client? What would you do with them? What could they expect from working with you?
Sure. So if someone's sort of wanting to look at the website and go, I'm not sure if I'm striking the right message here, or I'm appealing to the right person, or mentioning. If you look at the term SEO, you'll just be bombarded with information. And the thing with SEO is that there is so much you can do that it is almost too much you can do. And to begin with, you've got to structure it into a plan, and then you go, oh my God, where am I at here? So I think if the way I approach it is I would do sort of a consultation first of half an hour, whatever it may be, and just say like, look at the website and go, well, who are you targeting? Who are you wanting to appeal to? And then really break it down from there. Like what, if you had 5 keywords, what do you think they would be? And then I go off and do some keyword research and go, well, actually, no, if nobody's showing the results for this, or you've got loads of results for this, so you might want to take it down a tier. So we mentioned plumbers, so would you be a plumber for a specific service like a bathroom plumber, and then that might appeal to someone else. So there's lots of different ways you could go with it. So I would always have a very honest conversation with someone first about what do you want to appeal for. What's your, geographical areas? I mean, you can write website contents that's based purely for website pages based purely on Leeds, for example, or West Yorkshire or Manchester. Is it a geographical area? Is it a specific type of person? Is it an industry? There's lots of different ways you can write content. So You can do service pages on that, services pages on that, and write blogs on that, newsletters to, if you've got a membership, if you've got certain email addresses that you send newsletters out that your captive audience effectively, like, are you sending content out to them? So there's lots of different ways. When I speak to someone, I have no idea how they're bringing people in. Where do your inquiries come from? Is it through your website? Is it a telephone? If it's through the phone, you want your phone prominent on your website, things like that. But the website's really important. Like, people check a website all the time, so getting your website right is really important. So getting different services pages, and making sure it's really clear what you do on your website, that's important as well. So yeah, and then are you interested in blogs? And then you could spend £100 on your SEO, you could spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on your SEO. So it completely depends on your budget, on what marketing you want to do. There's no People think, right, well, I've done a bit of SEO, so I've done it now. And it's SEO is something that can thread through everything that you do, and it can really inform you. So it's a bit of an underrated topic for some people. I've literally heard people go, "I've done a bit of SEO now; it should be fine." And it's and it is something that should be continually looked at to get good results and to make you look great, and get appeal to the audience, not just the widest possible audience, but the audience that's the most relevant to you. And that relevance is the key word, I think. Here, there's no point searching for everyone if they're never going to pick up the phone. Like, it's got to be relevant to who you want it to speak to. So yeah, honest conversation first, then come up with a plan, then say how much you want to spend, and then then we can write all this content, or we can do a bit of content, whatever suits you, whatever you want to invest in, and then take it from there, really. So, but you have to have that consultation first, and that sort of chat first, because everyone has different sort of ways of bringing people in, which is the beauty of it. There's no one right way of bringing a person into your business, a client in, sorry.
Thanks, Scott. And in terms of barriers to entry, if someone says, well, if they're in the position I was in about a year ago of, well, I haven't even built my website yet. So
Yeah, no.
is it too early to consult with you and speak to you? Is it the perfect time to speak with you? And then if they're thinking, like I was a year ago, I haven't built my website yet. I'm not sure what my website budget is, never mind what my SEO budget is. If someone's thinking, oh no, I just don't know if I'm ready to start, if I'm going to be wasting this person's time, all the little stories we tell ourselves in our head that
Yeah.
prevent us from picking up the phone or reaching out.
Yeah, there's never a good start point or a good end point. There's just, you could do it at the start of the website. I'm not a website builder as such, but I've got a lot of contacts in this area, so I can make recommendations with that about people that I know who build websites. And they do, the beauty of website, you can do some really simple websites that just look really professional. Get the plug in whilst I can here now. Mine's very simple. A web designer did it for me, and it looks great. And you don't need to spend fortunes on it to just have a simple website. So yeah, I can, in some respects, it's great to come in before a website's built. We can I can literally have that conversation to go, right, well, these are the page structure that I would do based on what you've told me you do, and then we write the pages and we can do it like that. If a website's already built and out there, we can make recommendations that will hopefully improve how it looks, how it performs. Let's get some calls to action here. So it doesn't really matter when you do this. If it's like anything, it's the start of a big journey. Like, once you make that first step, then you're only going to improve it. So it doesn't need to be at the start of the process. It doesn't need to be at the end of the middle of the process, wherever. So yeah, so it doesn't really matter when.
Thanks, Scott.
You can start writing a blog anytime. There's no cut-off point, but I should have done it 6 months ago, and now I can't ever write a blog. You can always write one. And that's the beauty with content, because there'll be a lot of stuff that happens that doesn't work, but then there'll be a few things that really catch on. And that's that's why it's so worthwhile doing it. So, and there'll be things that you think will work that don't work. There'll be terms that you think, oh, that's a great term, I think it's really clever, and I think I'm really smart for doing this, and I'm really happy with it. And then you'll do the keyword research and go, oh, nobody's searching for that, so why we're doing it. So yeah, that's why it's useful in that sense as well.
I'm just curious, Scott, if someone's listening and thinking, well, I'm at the point of, I've got a little website, I've created some content and I'm not quite ready to engage with Scott yet, but is there any sort of tips, any rules of thumb you give to them? Just some little things that they could do to
Yeah.
slightly improve their SEO, their copywriting, their website without, before engaging someone like yourself.
Yeah, the best. So when I was at uni, one of my lecturers gave me this advice, and it stuck with me forever, really. And I think it's a great piece of advice. If you were chatting to someone in the pub, what would you say about a certain topic? So if you're in a pub chatting to someone like we are now, probably says a lot about me that I'm mentioning a pub there. But like, if we're having a coffee, for example, let's maybe do an example like that. And if you're struggling with a page, what if you were speaking to someone, forget writing about it, if you're speaking to someone, what would you say to them? And the first thing that you say to that person is probably what you should be writing down first. So at least get that on the page, and then you can tweak it afterwards and sort of mess about with it then. But getting ideas on the page first, and let me talk to someone, let me talk to my partner, let me talk to a friend, let me talk to my mum or dad, let me, what am I trying to say with this website page, with this blog? What is it interesting what I'm saying? If it's not interesting, should I really do it? If I is interesting, then I've got something to say. So, I would definitely sort of just on that real basic level, like what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to have a conversation with someone. Right, this is what I think I want to say. Right, well, let's get that down on the page, and then that can make the ideas flow. Momentum's the key with writing, I find. Like once you get your start point, it'll flow. People worry about. I always hear people say, "Oh, you write 1,000 words on something or 500 words on something," and it's the start point that's the hard bit. Once you get started and you get flowing and you have a rough idea of what you want to say, it really flows through. And I'd recommend that to any writer. Just get that start point done, get it on the page. You can always tweak it afterwards, because otherwise, I've done it myself where when you reread words and it loses all meaning, and you're just like, of what am I trying to say here? And if you reach that stage, go for a cup of tea, get away from your screen for 5 or 10 minutes, fresh eye, or even do it another day, come back another day, fresh eyes, go right. Why was I so worried about that? This is what I want to say. Get it on the page. That's the best. That's the best advice I could give for people struggling and wanting to do a bit of content themselves.
Love it, Scott. Thanks for that. I found I actually recorded an episode of my podcast a couple of days ago and realised at the end that my microphone wasn't switched on. So I got a full 30 minutes of me talking, but with no audio, which was hilarious. And I went and had a cup of tea, had a word with myself, and then plugged the microphone in and recorded it again. And what I found was that my second attempt, my second recording, I felt was 10 times better. What
Yeah.
I had to say and the way I said it was 10 times better after I'd kind of silently rehearsed it
Yeah.
initially. And I find that a lot with my writing as well. I'll write something down, come back to it, tweak it several times, and by the time it's at its seventh or eighth iteration, it'll be half decent and worth a read. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of just do something, just get something down,
That's
because
it.
you can't improve on nothing, but you can always improve on something.
Definitely. I think as well, the thing that what I found as well is if I try and change things too much, it just loses its meaning, and I lose the thread of where I'm at. So, like it's, if you're not careful with writing, you can spend ages and ages and ages on one sentence if you really want. And if you're a perfectionist, if you think that's important, like for instance, your first page of your website, you probably do want to spend the most time on that because it's the first thing people clap eyes on. But you can really sort of tie yourself in knots about, oh, if I phrase it like this and that. And you've just got to get it done and on the page. And you can always revisit it later and go, right, well, I'm going to edit this because I'm not happy with that. But the worst thing you can do is just waste an hour on a sentence, and then you come back and go, well, why the hell did I write that anyway in the first place? So, it's just you can really waste time tying yourself in knots with writing, and the most important thing is just get something on the page, and you can always check your work. That's important as well. Don't just write it and publish something because you'll make daft errors. You really will, just in the context of typing. So always check your work. That's a good one. But yeah, just don't worry about it too much and just get the ideas on the page. I think that's really important.
Thanks for sharing, Scott. It's been an invaluable deep dive on SEO there and copywriting and what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's certainly shed a lot of light on it for me when we initially had that conversation, and then having this conversation again has definitely it's got a few light bulbs on for me of things I want to go and do after we finish recording.
Yeah,
I'm sure anyone listening's found it valuable as well. But I'm conscious it is a podcast about taking the path less followed, and I just definitely don't want to let you go before I ask you about what led you to going freelance and what's it been like? Kind of how did the reality match the expectation or not?
yeah, sure. It's I've loved being freelance, and I wish I'd have done it sooner. I really do. It was it's great. Like you've got to be very organised, which I don't have a problem with. You've got to make sure you know what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. But I love the fact that my week's different every week. I'm not. I can I can take my laptop and work anywhere I want. I'm not sort of chained to a desk. I think when I've had the full-time jobs, I think COVID was difficult for me. I didn't enjoy being at home all the time, and I don't enjoy. I'm quite a sociable creature, so the idea of writing can be quite a you're not always talking to people basically on a day-to-day basis. So I found that period of time quite difficult, and working in that sort of environment, 9 to 5 at home on your own a lot. It sort of didn't really do it for me. Like I prefer. I like going, but I didn't want to go in the office all the time as well, because then there's obviously the obvious drawbacks with that of the expenses and stuff. So, it was something I'd always been interested in. Like my dad's always run his own businesses and stuff, and you've got that fear that, oh God, what if I do this and I've got I've got no people to, no customers or anything like that. So being part of a family business obviously meant that I was quite lucky in this respect, because I had, an element of income that I could fall back on getting a greater role in the family business. That's definitely helped. But also it was just a matter of just if you're ever out of work, you will always, if you're really inclined enough, you're not lazy enough, and you want to work hard enough, you will always find a role and a job. And it's kind of the same being freelance. If you can earn what you want. It's up to you. If you're happy on whatever, then you can work 2 days a week if you really want to. So the freedom of it is amazing. I love being able to, choose who I want to work with a little bit. Like there's, obviously you have to work with it's not all sort of perfect. You're working certain hours. Like I work a lot of Saturdays and stuff, which is, just part of what you do. But I love the idea of just working with different people. Like I'm outside, I'm out meeting people, and no days are the same, which is something that I really enjoy. Variety's really always been really important to me. I don't want to get bored in what I do. You spend a lot of time working, so if you can try and do something that makes you happy and challenges you and all that, then why not try and do that? And being freelance has definitely done that for me. It's great for I've got a little girl, so it's great for being able to organise time with her as well. And yeah, just being able to work with the people that you want to work with, it's fantastic. And I think one of the pitfalls people have with a full-time job is that they think it's guaranteed income, and I think it's sort of, well, if I try and do this, I'm not going to get anything. But a company, if it's struggling, will make you redundant. They won't sort of, they'll do it like that if they need to. So I think the whole security in a job thing is a bit of a falsehood, because you've got to, whether you're freelance, whether you're, whether you're self-employed or whether you work for an employer, you have to keep pushing things forward, and you have to, you have to work. So yeah, that idea of it being secure in one job, it's not really true for me, because like I say, if something goes wrong, they'll get rid of you. So like the good thing for being freelance for me is that I have sort of 3 or 4 different clients, so I'm at the moment, and the beauty is I can always try and speak to more and get more and stuff like that. So if one thing doesn't work out and goes by the way, I've still got these other income streams, so I'm not bringing no money in. And that multiple income streams, working with multiple different people, is by far the best thing about being freelance for me. And I really enjoy just the freedom and the flexibility that it gives you is absolutely brilliant. I'm working 8 days in a row now, so I've got a really busy period. But then I had 4 days off last week, so it was that was really nice. So I love that flexibility that it brings you as well. And Jeff, you can't be ill. That's the other thing with being freelance, which you'll find as well. Like you lose money if you're ill, but you're gonna get illnesses and stuff like that. But it's I've found it so freeing, and so if anything goes wrong, I've only got myself to blame, which is I don't want to blame other people. I don't want to, oh, this, I don't want to moan about, this company's not, like if I've got myself to moan about if things aren't where I want it to be. So I'd recommend being freelance to anyone. I think it's or self-employed. It's done me the world of good, and that fear can drive you a little bit. It's not a bad thing if you harness the nerves and the fear in the right way. It can really, it can really help push you forward because, otherwise you got nothing on the table, and you'll never let that happen to yourself because, it's I like being freelance. I wish I'd have done it sooner. It's brilliant.
Wow, thanks for sharing, Scott. That felt like quite an honest description of what it's really like and some of the pitfalls as well.
Mm.
Last night I was at an Andy's Man Club meeting and
Yeah.
was sharing with the room some of the challenges of being newly self-employed. And then it turned out that half the room in there were freelancers.
Right,
And we had a great conversation in the end just about what it's like and how it's so easy when you're selling your product and you're essentially selling yourself. If and when people say no, inevitably, as well as people saying yes, hopefully more yeses than nos. But when you get a no, it's really easy to take that personally and
Definitely.
feel rejected. And I
Yeah.
just wondered what you'd say to that.
Yeah, you've got to have a bit of not thick skin, but you can't take things personally. Definitely, you have to have your professional head on with things, and sometimes it's not. I was always the first one to self doubt, but you sort of go, well, they've obviously got set of circumstances. It just isn't right for this, So it's about moving past that because if you're just critical all the time, you're not going to push forward, and that fear of failure is an absolute killer. You're going to fail at stuff. You can't not fail. It's impossible. If you have a fear of failure all your life, you'll never leave the house because you might fear that you're going to trip over as you walk out the door. And I'm probably potentially sounding a bit glib there, but you can't fear failure because it's going to happen. You're going to get things wrong. There is no such thing as a perfect human being. So like when you get a no for something, you have to just accept it. You have to move on. We're trying to buy and sell a house at the moment, and the house sale fell through, and I could have spent hours and hours figuring out what was happening. Oh God, this is a disaster. But ultimately, it's happened, and you move on. You enjoy the successes and you move on from the failures, and that's what you have to do. There's definitely lessons you can learn from the no's. Like, what have I done here? Is there something different I can do? But I think trying to keep a level head and trying to be really objective about it and try and take emotion out as much as you possibly can, I think is a real help for that. Something I try and do. It's not always easy, especially when you think, oh, that could really work, and why have I said no? And you do doubt yourself, but you got to just move on because you can have 1,000 no's, but you only need one yes, and that can really snowball things for you and take you down paths you didn't even think were possible.
Exactly. I think it was it Thomas Edison who took him 10,000 attempts to make a bulb.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, so you failed 9,999 times. He said, no, I found 9,999 ways to not make a light bulb. Yeah. And it's just a case of reframing. A better reframe that I try and use is Tony Robbins's: failure is just a result, success is just a result. If you want a different result, take a different action.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, Einstein's definition of insanity is do the same action again and again and again and again and expect a different result.
Yeah,
so if you've tried something, it's not worked, try something else. And statistically, every no you get, you're one step closer to a yes. The chances are you're going to inevitably get a yes.
Yeah,
and it does work to look at it like that. And any way that you can kind of separate that failure from becoming crippling and leaving you just in pieces on the floor has been really crucial and critical to me to keep me moving forward. As definitely when you start out on this journey, there's a lot of failures, and
definitely
you start to realize just how much you've got to learn, and it's like looking off the edge of a cliff thinking, oh my God, how am I gonna get across this? But then I meet people like yourself, and not only is your story and what you have to share really inspiring, kind of the work we've done on SEO and copywriting has been another piece of that jigsaw. There's no one will give you your whole business finished and complete on a silver platter. Some people might promise to, but in reality no one will. But everyone you meet and choose to work with can potentially give you another piece of the jigsaw, and you've just got to put it all together.
Yeah, that's it. And just finding the right pieces for you as well. Like, is this relevant to me? Is this not relevant to me? You know, and I think you can sort of, yeah, you've got to really have a clear mind. What makes you happy? What do you want to achieve? Is it a certain number of pounds you want to earn, or is it, you know, flexibility in what you do on a day-to-day basis? Like, you got to. I think it's important to try it. How do you? I think we were talking about this in one of the sessions I did with yourself, which was really helpful about what is success to you. You know, what does it mean? You've got this amount of money in the bank. Does it mean, you know, you work? You know, are you happy in your job? You know, and I think that's a really important thing to try and learn about yourself when you're doing the self-employed stuff. Like, what are you after? Are you after the money? Are you after the happiness? Are you after the variety? Are you after, you know, I want this number of shops around the world and to be seen? You know, like there's so many different ways to quantify it, isn't there? So I think that's a beauty with businesses. It must be the beauty of what you do as well. Like, there's so many um different ways to go about it. So, and how do you define success is quite. I've always find that sort of stuff quite interesting, because
Agreed, Scott.
everyone's different. Everyone's different. That's one thing for sure. And the world would be boring if everyone was the same. So you can, you know, harness all the different skills and all that sort of stuff that other people can bring, and you can ignore the stuff that doesn't particularly help you. So it's it's really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And it sounds like, again, like a bit of an advert for Andy's Man Club, but another thing we said very,
It's brilliant, Andy's Man Club. It's a great, absolutely brilliant place.
I agree. Another
Yeah,
thing we said last night is that, you know, comparison is the thief of joy. If you know, it's easy to look on social media and think, well, that person apparently works 1 hour a week and earns 10 grand.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's easy to think, well, that happened overnight, and
yeah,
that, or that's real. Whereas in reality, a lot of it's not real.
yeah.
And it's kind of, if someone is achieving that amount of wealth with working 1 hour a week, it'd
Mm.
be interesting to look at their life and see how much work they've done to get to where they are now, because
Yeah,
social media, you know, portrays it as an overnight success,
yeah,
whereas in
that's right.
reality it was
Yeah,
probably 40 years of hard graft that
yeah,
led that individual to that level of success that they're at now. So just be wary of comparison. And I always think if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. There are people on LinkedIn that message me and say, I'll turn your business into a six-figure business in six
yeah,
weeks. And
yeah.
you're thinking, yeah, right. What world,
Okay.
what planet are you living on?
Yeah, that's right.
Because it tends to be too good to be true.
Yeah, that's the thing is as well. If you only worked an hour a week, what would you actually do with your time? What would be your purpose anyway? That's what I was wondering. I'd just be bored. Like,
Yeah,
it's interesting. Like, you know, who wants to sit there and do nothing? Do you know what I mean? It's, yeah, the odd day's nice here and there, but you know, who wants to do that? You know, it's I don't. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's it, I don't get that me myself. Anyway, I'm happy working. You know, it's you know, but yeah, we'd all like to sit on a beach, wouldn't we, and do nothing. But I think the reality of that after a few weeks would probably go, "Oh, I'm actually quite bored now." So
exactly.
I think work can give you a good grounding in what it is that you do and what it is that you're passionate about as well. So it's yeah, but yeah, some of the stuff on social, you got to be so careful with social media and compare yourself and stuff like that. You know, it's quite dangerous if you're not careful. You've got to take it with a pinch of salt. It's not really people's proper lives, I don't think. It's you know, a sort of visualization of how they want it to come across, I think, sometimes. So I think it's yeah, I think it's great, but it's something you've got to be a little bit careful with. I think social media, and as you said, you can't compare to other people. Everyone's on different journeys, you know, they really are. So it's the best example of a comparison I could give with our little girl. One of our friends got a little girl who's the same age, and you would expect to the day, they were born on the same day, and you would expect them to talk at the same time. You would expect them to walk at the same time, and they couldn't be more different. And they were born on the same day, so it just goes to show that, you know, we're not all the same. We all learn things at different paces. We're all, you know, and to compare, oh, you're good at that. You know, you'll be better than someone else or something else. So, you know, it's comparison's horrible. I've wasted a lot of time trying to compare myself to other people, and that's another thing over the last few years I've really tried hard not to do. It can be quite dangerous to do that.
Exactly. If you compare yourself to people who are doing better than you feel like you're inadequate and you're not keeping up.
Yeah,
And if you compare yourself to people who are in a worse situation than you, then you feel bad because you feel ungrateful and as though
mm,
you should be happier with what you've got. And
yeah,
you kick yourself, you know. So it's whichever way you compare yourself, you're kind of destined to to feel bad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So it really, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an easy trap to fall into. I know I have. So to start to round off our conversation today,
Sure.
Scott, if someone's listening and they're really interested to find out more and want to have a conversation with you, I can vouch for you're one of the easiest people I know to talk to, very easy to get on with and very approachable. And you really took the time to understand my business, which I'm infinitely grateful for. So if someone's listening, how and where can they find you and how can they get in touch?
No, likewise, Dave. It's great working with yourself as well. So, so my website is skcopywriting.co.uk. So all my contact details are on there, email and phone number. I'm a bit old school with this sort of stuff, but most people don't like speaking on the phone. But I find that a phone call is definitely the best way to get the ball rolling and see if you want to work together. So 07792 685508 is my phone number. I would probably say phone number. Can do it by email, but phone number is quicker and easier to do the initial chat. But yeah, have a look at my website as well. That's I've tried putting all my SEO experience into that website as well. So that's the sort of basic. You don't need a fancy website that's all singing and all dancing. You can just get a simple website that will do the job for you. So so that's my details. And if anyone's interested, just give us a call or drop us an email.
Thank you very much, Scott, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you. I feel like we could have gone on for another 2 or 3 hours.
I'm thinking the same as well.
The time always flies by when we chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's been a pleasure to have you and a delight. And yes, if anyone is listening, I totally endorse Scott and recommend reaching out. Give him a shout. You won't regret it.
Oh, and likewise for David. Very, very interested in people and listening to their stories as well. And I found that with yourself. So I'll dosh you straight back as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, no. See you later.
The Solo Coach Podcast.